How are you guys doing? Today is Sunday, October 24th, 2021. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review the Elite matchups and performances from yesterday, Saturday, October 23rd, and of course, I'm going to give a snapshot of where we are at this point in the 2021 calendar year. Now that the Atlanta Braves have eliminated the Los Angeles Dodgers from playoff contention, there are now only two teams left in the MLB competing for the MLB title, which means the World Series is coming up. That will start on Tuesday. The NFL and the college football seasons, and of course soccer season, football seasons everywhere, are getting right underway. And of course the NBA has just got started, so same as the NHL. And just to take a look at where we are, starting with the MLB, jumping out to Game 6 of the National League Championship Series. The Atlanta Braves came into this series leading 3-2, and the Atlanta Braves were able to beat the Los Angeles Dodgers 4-2 in Game 4 in order to win the series 4-2 as well. And looking out to how this game fared in the final campaign of the 2021 season for the defending World Series champs LA Dodgers. This game started off in the bottom of the first as Austin Riley hitting into a ground rule double would bring Ozzie Albies to the plate, making the game 1-0 Atlanta. The LA Dodgers would tie the game at the top of the fourth off of a Cody Bellinger RBI single that brought Trey Turner to the plate. At the bottom of the fourth, Eddie Rosario would hit a 3-run home run to put the Braves up 4-1, and then the Dodgers' AJ Pollock would hit a double to bring Chris Taylor home. It would make it 4-2, and then the Braves would end up throwing with some amazing pitching in the final stretch to seal this series out and to seal a Braves-Astros World Series, to seal a World Series that is going to stay in the South. Looking at the box score for the LA Dodgers in their pitching rotation, the loss went to their elite starting pitcher Walker Buehler. He allowed 4 earned runs in 4 innings as he struck out 6. With this loss, he's now 0-1 as he said he allowed 4 earned runs in the 4 innings, striking out 6 in that span. In the Dodgers batting lineup, their elite right fielder, Mookie Betts, would finish the season 0-4 as he finished with 2 strikeouts. Their elite shortstop, Corey Seager, would end up going 0-4 as he struck out twice. Their all-star second baseman, Trey Turner, went 0-3 as he finished with a strikeout. He walked and he finished with a run. Their elite center fielder, Cody Bellinger, would finish 1-3 with an RBI as he walked. Their left fielder, AJ Pollock, would end up going 2-4. And then their future Hall of Fame pinch-hitting first baseman, Albert Pujols, would go 0-2 as he struck out twice. For the Atlanta Braves in this matchup, the start was given to Ian Anderson. Anderson allowed 1 earned run and 3 hits in 4 innings as he struck out 4. The win was given to the Braves setup relief pitcher Tyler Matzik. He allowed no earned runs in 2 innings pitched as he struck out 4 as he cleaned up Luke Jackson's mess. He would strike out 4 batters in that span, and with this win, he's now 1-0 in the series, and the save was given to Will Smith, the Atlanta native. He allowed no earned runs in the 9th as he struck out 2, picking up his first save of the series, his only save of the series. And in the Braves batting lineup, their left fielder, Eddie Rosario, would go 2-4 with 3 RBIs and a run, and with a walk, he would be named the National League Championship Series MVP as he would finish with a .560 batting average for the entire series. Their elite second baseman, Ozzie Albies, would end up going 1-4 with a run. Their third baseman, Austin Riley, would go 2-5 with an RBI. Eddie Rosario would hit his 3rd home run of the series as well. That was the 3-run home run. With this win, the Atlanta Braves have won this series in 6. They have eliminated the reigning World Series champs, and now they are going to face off against the Houston Astros in the World Series. And of course, the World Series will take place on Tuesday as the Astros have home field advantage over the Atlanta Braves. The Astros won 7 more games than the Atlanta Braves in the regular season, just for context, just to show where both teams sit. Jumping out to college football and taking a look at the ranked teams that played yesterday, starting off with the second best team in the nation, the Cincinnati Bearcats went to Navy and they were able to beat the Midshipmen 27-20 after they would go up 27-10. Navy's last 10 points would come in garbage time, but it would actually be a lot closer, and Navy would actually get a chance to win the game, but Cincinnati was able to get an interception at the last moment to save their win. For the Bearcats, their starting quarterback, Desmond Ridder, would be their leading passer. He threw for 176 yards, threw for 2 touchdowns and an interception. He also ran for 6 yards, so that's 182 yards of offense. Their leading rusher was Jerome Ford. Jerome Ford finished with 90 yards on 15 carries as he had a rushing touchdown. He also had 11 yards on 2 receptions. That's 101 total yards of offense with his rushing touchdown. Their leading receiver, Josh Wiley, had 60 yards on 4 receptions as he had 2 receiving touchdowns. Cincinnati's leading tackler was Joel Dublanco. He finished with 15 tackles, 2 of them for loss. Darian Beavers finished with 14 tackles as he finished with a tackle for loss. Curtis Brooks had 10 tackles and a sack, the only sack of the day. And Arquan Bush finished with an interception for himself. With this win, Cincinnati is 7-0. They are 3-0 in the American Athletic Conference. They are one of 3 teams that are undefeated within the division itself, and SMU is the only team left in the American Conference that is still undefeated in their football season at this very moment. With this loss, Navy is 1-6. They are officially 1-4 in the American Conference. Jumping out to see what the third team in the nation is doing, the Oklahoma Sooners went to Kansas to beat the Jayhawks 35-23. They outscored Kansas 35-13 in the second half as they scored all of 35 of their points in the second half. For the Sooners, their quarterback Caleb Williams would throw for 178 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. He ran for 70 yards and a touchdown. That's 248 total yards of offense and 3 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Kennedy Brooks, had 79 yards on 24 carries as he had 2 touchdowns. He also had a 24-yard reception for himself. That's 103 total yards of offense. On the defensive side of the ball for Oklahoma, Key Lawrence and Brian Asamoah led the team in tackles as they each had 8 tackles. Key Lawrence had 2 tackles for loss. Nick Bonito had the team's only sack. With this win, Oklahoma is 8-0. They are 5-0 in the Big 12. They are the only team that is undefeated within the Big 12 at the moment. With this loss, Kansas is 1-6 as they are now 0-4 in the Big 12 at the moment. Jumping into what the number 4 team in the nation is doing, the Alabama Crimson Tide hosted the unranked Tennessee Volunteers. The Crimson Tide would beat the Volunteers 52-24. Alabama outscored Tennessee 21-14 in the first half, and they outscored them 31-10 in the second half. For the Crimson Tide in this matchup, their starting quarterback, Bryce Young, threw for 371 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 42 yards and an additional 2 touchdowns. That is 413 total yards of offense and 4 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Brian Robinson Jr., finished with 107 yards on 26 carries as he had 3 touchdowns. He also had 16 yards through the air. That is 123 total yards of offense. Their leading receiver, Jamison Williams, had 123 yards on 6 receptions. John Mechie III finished with 121 yards on 11 receptions as he had 2 touchdowns for himself. On the defensive side of the ball, Will Anderson Jr. had 8 tackles as he had 1.5 sacks on the day. Alabama finished with 3 sacks. Their only interception will go to Jalen Armour Davis. He had 2 tackles for himself. With this win, Alabama is 7-1. They are 4-1 in the SEC. That is the best SEC record in the West at the moment, but Georgia is the only remaining team in the SEC that is undefeated in SEC competition. With this loss, Tennessee is 4-4. They are 2-3 in the SEC. Checking on the 5th-ranked team in the nation, the Ohio State Buckeyes went to Indiana and were able to beat the unranked Hoosiers 54-7. Ohio State outscored Indiana 44-7 in the first half and then 10-0 in the second half. For the Ohio State Buckeyes, their starting quarterback C.J. Stroud threw for 266 yards and 4 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Travion Henderson, finished with 81 yards on 9 carries as he had 2 touchdowns. He also had 14 yards on a reception and a touchdown. That's 95 yards on 10 touches and 3 touchdowns for Travion Henderson. Their leading receiver, Jackson Smith-Njigba, finished with 99 yards on 6 receptions. Jeremy Ruckert, their third leading receiver, had 47 yards on 5 receptions as he had 2 touchdowns for himself. On the defensive side of the ball, Bryson Shaw, Tommy Eichenberg, and Taraja Mitchell finished with the team high in tackles as they each had 4. The team would finish with 5 total sacks on the day. And with this win, Ohio State is 6-1. They are 4-0 in the Big Ten. They are one of 3 teams in the Big Ten, all in the Big Ten East, that are still undefeated in the Big Ten. They sit alongside Michigan and Michigan State. But unlike Michigan and Michigan State, Ohio State has lost a game. Michigan and Michigan State are still undefeated alongside being undefeated in the Big Ten. With this loss, Indiana is 2-5. They are 0-4 to start their season in the Big Ten. Jumping out to see what the number 6 team in the nation is doing. 6th-ranked Michigan, the Wolverines, hosted the unranked Northwestern Wildcats. Michigan was able to beat Northwestern 33-7. They outscored Northwestern 10-7 in the first half, all in the second quarter, and they outscored Northwestern, actually shut them out 23-0 in the second half. For the Michigan Wolverines in this matchup, their starting quarterback, Cade McNamara, threw for 129 yards, and then he would also run for -6. Their leading rusher, Blake Corum, had 119 yards on 19 carries as he had 2 touchdowns. He also had 23 yards on 4 receptions as he had 142 total yards of offense. Also, their second leading rusher, Hassan Haskins, had 110 yards on 23 carries as he had 2 touchdowns. They're on the defensive side of the ball. Brad Hawkins and Daxton Hill each finished with 6 tackles apiece. They would finish with the team high in tackles, and then DJ Turner would finish with the only interception. With this win, Michigan is 7-0, and they are 4-0 in the Big Ten. They and Michigan State are the only remaining teams in the Big Ten that are completely undefeated. And following this matchup, Michigan is now 7-0. And with this loss, Northwestern is 3-4. They are now 1-3 in the Big Ten. Jumping to see what the number 7 team in the nation is doing, the Penn State Nittany Lions hosted the unranked Illinois Fighting Illini. The Illini would end up beating the Penn State Nittany Lions 20-18 in 9th overtime. Of course, with all these conflated overtimes, it would take until the 9th overtime for Illinois to score when Penn State didn't. For the 7th-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions, their starting quarterback, Sean Clifford, would throw for 165 yards and a touchdown. Their leading receiver, Jahan Dotson, had 69 yards on 6 receptions. Keandre Lambert-Smith, their second leading receiver, had 49 yards on 3 receptions as he had the only receiving touchdown for Penn State. On the defensive side of the ball, Jair Brown finished with 13 tackles. He was their leading tackler. Ellis Brooks had 11 tackles as he had a half of a tackle for loss. Arnold Ebikiti finished with 10 tackles on the day as he finished with a sack and a half. He finished with 2 tackles for loss. Curtis Jacobs finished with the team's only interception. For the unranked Fighting Illini, their starting quarterback, Arthur Satowski, would end up throwing for only 38 yards on the day. Their leading rusher, Chase Brown, had 223 yards and a touchdown for the day. He also had 6 receiving yards. That's 229 total yards of offense. Their second leading rusher, Joshua McCray, had 142 yards on 22 carries. And then on the Illinois defense, Tariq Barnes led the team in tackles as he had 7 of them. With this win, Illinois is 3-5 as they are 2-3 in the Big Ten. With this loss, the 7th-ranked Penn State Nittany Lions are 5-2. They are officially 2-2 in the Big Ten at this very moment, probably expecting to drop out of the top 10. Jumping to see what the number 8 team in the nation is doing, the Oklahoma State Cowboys went to Iowa State to face off against the Cyclones. Iowa State would end up beating Oklahoma State 24-21. This game would come to the end as Iowa State would win it off of a 4-yard touchdown run from Breece Hall. For the 8th-ranked Oklahoma State Cowboys in their first loss, their starting quarterback Spencer Sanders would throw for 225 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also ran for 29 yards. That's 254 total yards of offense. Their leading rusher, Jalen Warren, had 76 yards on 18 carries. He also had 7 yards through the air. That's 83 total yards of offense. Their leading receiver, Brennan Presley, had 6 receptions for 84 yards as he had 2 touchdowns. Their second leading receiver, Tay Martin, had 4 yards for 80 receptions as he had the other touchdown for Oklahoma State. On the defensive side of the ball, Malcolm Rodriguez led the team in tackles. He had 13 of them as he had half of a tackle for loss. For the unranked Iowa State Cyclones, their starting quarterback, Brock Purdy, would throw for 307 yards and 2 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Breece Hall, had 70 yards off 21 carries as he would have the game-winning touchdown. Before I get to that, he would also have 37 yards through the air. That's 107 total yards of offense. Their leading receiver, Xavier Hutchinson, had 125 yards off of 12 receptions as he had 2 receiving touchdowns for Iowa State. On the defensive side of the ball, Mike Rose led the team in tackles. He had 8 of them. Will McDonald IV finished with 5 tackles as he had 2 sacks, 2 of the team's 3. With this win, Iowa State is 5-2 as they are now 3-1 in the Big 12. With this loss, Oklahoma State is now 6-1. They are now 3-1 in the Big 12 as well. Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Iowa State are tied for the second best record in the Big 12 behind Oklahoma at the moment. Taking a look at what's going on with the 10th ranked team in the nation, the Oregon Ducks went to Pasadena to the Rose Bowl to beat the UCLA Bruins 34-31. UCLA did outscore Oregon 17-14 in the first half. Oregon outscored UCLA 20-14 in the second. And for the 10th ranked Oregon Ducks, they would have to hold UCLA off as UCLA scored the last 2 touchdowns of the game, but Oregon would be able to successfully do that. For the 10th ranked Ducks, their starting quarterback Anthony Brown would throw for 296 yards and 2 picks. He would also run for an additional 85 yards and a touchdown of his own. That is 381 total yards of offense. Even though we did turn the ball over twice, he did have a rushing touchdown for himself. Their second leading rusher, Travis Dye, had 14 carries for 35 yards as he had 4 rushing touchdowns. He and Anthony Brown would combine for the 5 touchdowns that Oregon would score. Their leading receiver, Devin Williams, would finish with 80 yards on 5 receptions. On the defensive side of the ball for the Ducks, their leading tackler was their defensive end, Kayvon Thibodeau. He finished with 9 tackles as he had 2 sacks and 4.5 tackles for loss. Noah Sewell would finish with 9 tackles as well. DJ James would finish with 8 tackles on the day, and he also would have 2 interceptions. With this win, the 10th ranked Oregon Ducks are 6-1. They are 3-1 in the Pac-12. They are tied with Oregon State, Utah, and Arizona State for the best record within the conference. And they are the only team in the Pac-12 that has only 1 loss on their schedule so far. With this loss, the unranked UCLA Bruins are 5-3. They are 3-2 in the Pac-12 as of right now. Jumping to the 12th ranked team in the nation, the Ole Miss Rebels fought on and took on the unranked LSU Tigers, and Ole Miss was able to beat LSU 31-17, scoring all 31 of their points in the second and third quarters, as LSU scored their 17 points in the first and fourth. For the 12th ranked Ole Miss Rebels, their starting quarterback Matt Corral would throw for 185 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 24 yards and a touchdown himself. That is 209 total yards of offense and 2 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Snoop Connor, had 117 yards on 14 carries. And then their second leading rusher, Jarian Early, would finish with 97 yards on 12 carries as he had a rushing touchdown. Their leading receiver, Dontario Drummond, finished with 93 yards on 8 receptions. On the defensive side of the ball, Mark Robinson led the team in tackles as he had 12 of them. Chance Campbell finished with 10 tackles as he had a sack as well. And Tysheem Johnson finished with the only interception of the game. With this win, Ole Miss is 6-1. They are 3-1 in the SEC at the moment. They sit alongside Auburn, Alabama, and Kentucky as the 4 teams that only have one loss in the entire conference and Georgia's the only team that is undefeated within the division. And then taking a look at what's going on with or following this matchup, Ole Miss is 6-1. They are 3-1 in the SEC, and with this loss, unranked LSU is 4-4 as they are now 2-3 in the SEC. Taking a look at what's going on with the 13th ranked team in the nation, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish took on the unranked USC Trojans, and the Fighting Irish were able to beat the Trojans 31-16. Notre Dame outscored USC 17-3 in the first half, and then they outscored USC 14-13 in the second half. For the Fighting Irish, their starting quarterback Jack Cohn would throw for 189 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Their leading rusher, Kyron Williams, finished with 138 yards on 25 carries as he had 2 touchdowns. He would also finish with 42 yards through the air. That's 180 total yards of offense. On the defensive side of the ball, Tariq Bracy, JT Bertrand, Bo Bauer, and DJ Brown each finished with 7 tackles. Isaiah Foskey finished with 5 tackles as he had 2 sacks. Bo Bauer, one of the players that had 7 tackles, would have a 79-yard interception return that would not result in a touchdown, but still good return from him. With this win, Notre Dame is now 6-1 on the season. And, of course, with a win like this, they're going to be moving up, especially with some ranked teams having lost. Taking a look at what was going on with the 16th ranked team in the nation, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons were able to beat the Army Black Knights, as Wake Forest still has yet to lose a game this season. For the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, their starting quarterback, or I guess looking at how the game would go on, Wake Forest outscored Army 24-20 or 28-21 in the first half. They outscored them 42-35 in the second half. So they outscored them by a touchdown in both halves. For Wake Forest, their starting quarterback, Sam Hartman, would throw for 458 yards and 5 touchdowns. He also ran for an additional 22 yards and a touchdown. That's 480 total yards and 6 touchdowns. Their leading rusher, Christian Beal-Smith, finished with 71 yards on 8 carries as he finished with a touchdown. He also had 24 yards through the air. That's 94 total yards of offense. Their second leading rusher, Justice Ellison, finished with 66 yards on 5 carries as he had a touchdown. He also had 3 yards through the air. That's 69 total yards of offense with this touchdown. Wake Forest leading receiver, Jaquari Roberson, finished with 157 yards on 8 receptions. He had 3 touchdowns. Their second leading receiver, A.T. Perry, had 6 receptions for 146 yards as he had a touchdown. And Keyshawn Williams, their third leading receiver, had 2 receptions for 93 yards as he finished with a touchdown for himself. On the defensive side of the ball for Wake Forest, Rondell Bothroyd finished with 10 tackles as he had a sack, the only sack of the day. And Travion Red would finish with a pick 6 to go along with his 7 tackles. With this win, the 16th ranked Wake Forest Demon Deacons are 7-0. That is the best record in the ACC at the moment. They are the only undefeated team left in the ACC. With this loss, unranked Army is 4-3, and among independents, they are sitting in the very middle out of the 7. They are the 4th out of the 7. Taking a look at what's going on with the 17th ranked team in the nation, the Texas A&M Aggies hosted the unranked South Carolina Gamecocks. The Aggies would end up beating the Gamecocks 44-14. They outscored South Carolina 31-0 in the first half. Then South Carolina outscored Texas A&M 14-13 in the second half, as all 14 of their points came in the fourth quarter after Texas A&M had already scored 40 points. And for the 17th ranked Texas A&M Aggies, their starting quarterback, Zach Calzada, threw for 187 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Their leading rusher, Devin Akane, would run for 154 yards off 20 carries as he had a touchdown. Their second leading rusher, Isaiah Spiller, would finish with 102 yards on 18 carries and a touchdown. He also had 3 receptions for 20 yards. That's 122 yards of offense. Their leading receiver, Jalen Weidermeyer, finished with 75 yards on 4 receptions as he had 2 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Jordan Gilbert would finish with 5 tackles, and so would Edgerrin Cooper. And there are on the defensive line, Tyree Johnson finished with 2 tackles. Both of his tackles were sacks. Deuce Harmon and Tyreek Chappell would finish with both of the team's interceptions. With this win, Texas A&M, the 17th ranked team in the nation, is now 6-2. They are now 3-2 in the SEC at the moment. And with this loss, unranked South Carolina is 4-4. They are now 1-4 in the SEC as things stand. Jumping to see what's going on with the 18th ranked team in the nation, the North Carolina State Wolfpack went down to Florida and they fell short to the Miami Hurricanes. The Hurricanes would beat North Carolina State 31-30 as North Carolina State outscored Miami 17-14 in the first half. Miami outscored North Carolina State 17-13 in the second half to pick up their first ACC win of the year. For the 18th ranked North Carolina State Wolfpack, their starting quarterback Devin Leary would throw for 310 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran for a yard and a touchdown, so that's 311 total yards and 3 touchdowns to Devin Leary's name. Their leading receiver, Emeka Emezie, finished with 75 yards on 3 receptions. Their second leading receiver, Thayer Thomas, had 7 receptions for 71 yards as he had 2 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Drake Thomas finished with 9 tackles as he had 2 sacks, leading the team in tackles and sacks. For the unranked Miami Hurricanes, they were led by their starting quarterback, Tyler Van Dyke. He threw for 325 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also ran for 8 yards. That's 333 total yards of offense. Miami's leading rusher was Jalen Knighton. He had 83 yards on 21 carries. He also had 83 yards on 6 receptions as he also had a touchdown. That is 166 total yards of offense, literally mirroring rushing and receiving yards. Their leading receiver was Charleston Rambo. He had 127 yards on 9 receptions as he had 2 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Wayne Steed had 6 tackles for himself. With this win, the unranked Miami Hurricanes are 3-4. They are 1-2 in the ACC. With this loss, the 18th ranked North Carolina State Wolfpack are 5-2. They are now 2-1 in the ACC. Jumping to see what's going on with the 22nd ranked team in the nation, the San Diego State Aztecs faced off against the Air Force Falcons, and San Diego State was able to beat Air Force 20-4 to keep their perfect season alive. They outscored Air Force 13-0 in the first half, and Air Force would outscore San Diego State 14-7 in the second half. But Air Force wouldn't have enough to overcome San Diego State's lead. For the Aztecs, their starting quarterback, Lucas Johnson, threw for 72 yards. Their leading rusher, Chance Bell, had 50 yards on 8 carries as he had a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Patrick McMorris and Michael Schwacroft led the team in tackles as they both had 7 of them. Dallas Branch would finish with 3 tackles as he had an interception. With this win, San Diego State is now 3-0, or they're now 7-0. They are 3-0 in the Mountain West. They are the only remaining undefeated team in the Mountain West as things currently stand. With this loss, Air Force is 6-2. They are now 3-2 in the Mountain West. Jumping to see what's going on with the 23rd ranked team in the nation, the Pittsburgh Panthers hosted the unranked Clemson Tigers, and the Panthers were able to pull away with a 27-17 win. Pittsburgh outscored Clemson 14-7 in the first half, and they outscored Clemson 13-10 in the second. For the unranked for the 23rd ranked Pittsburgh Panthers, their starting quarterback Kenny Pickett would throw for 302 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also ran for 15 yards. That's 317 total yards of offense. Pittsburgh's leading rusher Rodney Hammond Jr. finished with 66 yards on 11 carries. He would go on to finish with that many for the game. Their second leading rusher, Israel Abanikanda, finished with 56 yards on 9 carries. He also had 20 yards on 3 receptions. That's 76 total yards of offense. Pittsburgh's leading receiver, Jordan Addison, finished with 5 receptions for 84 yards as he had a touchdown. Their second leading receiver, Taysir Mack, finished with 3 receptions for 59 yards as he had a touchdown as well. On the defensive side of the ball, Brandon Hill finished with 7 tackles for himself. And then in the secondary, Servakia Dennis would finish with a 50-yard pick six to go along with his 2 tackles. And Damari Mathis would have an interception too. With this win, the 23rd ranked Pittsburgh Panthers are 6-0. They are 6-1. They are 3-0 in the ACC. Pittsburgh and Wake Forest are the 2 remaining teams that are undefeated in the ACC at the moment. With this loss, the unranked Clemson Tigers are 4-3. They are 3-2 in the ACC at the moment. Jumping to see what's going on with the 24th ranked team in the nation, University of Texas San Antonio Roadrunners were able to beat the unranked Louisiana Tech Bulldogs 45-16. UTSA outscored Louisiana Tech 21-10 in the first half, and they outscored Louisiana Tech 24-6 in the fourth quarter. For the Roadrunners in the first half, their starting quarterback Frank Harris would throw for 193 yards and 2 touchdowns. He would also run for 59 yards on the ground. That would be 252 total yards of offense. Their leading rusher, Sincere McCormick, finished with 113 yards on 23 carries as he had 3 touchdowns for the day. Their leading rusher, Zachary Franklin, finished with 118 yards on 5 receptions as he had 2 touchdowns. On the defensive side of the ball, Jamal Ligon finished with 6 tackles as he finished with half a sack. Clarence Hicks finished with 4 tackles as he had 2.5 sacks for himself. Of the team's 6 sacks, in their secondary, Dadrian Taylor would finish with 4 tackles, and he would also finish with a 51-yard pick six. And Jared Preston would finish with UTSA's only other interception. With this win, UTSA is 8-0. They are 4-0 in the Conference USA. They alongside UT El Paso are the only 2 teams that are still undefeated within this conference. With this loss, unranked Louisiana Tech is 2-5. They are now 1-2 within Conference USA. And taking one look at the 25th ranked team in the nation, the Purdue Boilermakers hosted the unranked Wisconsin Badgers. The Badgers would end up beating the Purdue Boilermakers 30-13 as they would be even in the first half. They would tie up at 13, but Wisconsin would outscore Purdue 17-0 in the second half, which would be the difference. For the 25th ranked Purdue Boilermakers, their starting quarterback Aiden O'Connell would throw for 200 yards, a touchdown, and 3 interceptions. Their leading receiver, Pay Durham, would finish with 9 receptions for 112 yards and a touchdown. On the defensive side of the ball, Jalen Alexander would be their leading tackler. He finished with 15 tackles. And then for the unranked Wisconsin Badgers, their starting quarterback, Graham Mertz, would throw for 52 yards. Their leading rusher, Ches Maluzzi, would finish with 149 yards on 27 carries as he had a touchdown. He also had 11 yards through the air. That's 160 total yards of offense. Their second leading rusher was Braylon Allen. He finished with 140 yards on 12 carries as he had 2 touchdowns on the ground. He had 9 yards through the air. That's 149 total yards of offense. On the defensive side of the ball, Leo Chenal would finish with 9 total tackles as he had 3.5 sacks on the day. He had quite a day for himself. John Torchio, Caesar Williams, and Colin Wilder would finish with the team's 3 interceptions. With this win, the unranked Wisconsin Badgers are 4-3. They are 2-2 in the Big Ten, and with this loss, The 25th ranked Purdue Boilermakers are 4-3. They are now 2-2 in the Big Ten. That finishes and concludes all of the ranked opponents in Week 8. Of course, Week 9 matchups will pick up on Thursday as the 24th ranked Coastal Carolina Chanticleers are going to host the unranked Troy Trojans. So that's how college football is going to look. And of course, once all of today's NFL games are finished, I will come back tomorrow to relay what was going on with those matchups. Taking a look at what was going on in the NBA, of course, starting in Cleveland. The Cleveland Cavaliers hosted the Atlanta Hawks, and the Cavaliers were able to beat the Hawks 101-95. Their difference in this game would be in the third quarter, where they outscored the Hawks by 14. For the Atlanta Hawks, they were led in scoring by their elite starting point guard Trae Young out of Oklahoma. Young finished with 24 points and 7 assists alongside 3 steals in 35 minutes. He shot 8 for 22 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 7 for 7 from the foul line. For the Cleveland Cavaliers in this matchup, they were led in scoring by their starting point guard out of Spain, Ricky Rubio. He finished with 23 points, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists in 35 minutes as he shot 9 for 15 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line on the night. With this win, the Cleveland Cavaliers are 1-2, and with this loss, the Atlanta Hawks are 1-0 to start their season. Jumping out to Indianapolis, the Indiana Pacers hosted the Miami Heat, and the Pacers would end up beating the Heat 102-91 in overtime. They outscored the Heat 16-5 in overtime. In the third quarter, the Heat outscored the Pacers 17-8 in what was a very low-scoring third quarter, but still, nonetheless, Pacers came away with a very big win despite scoring single digits in the third quarter. For the Miami Heat, they were led in scoring by their point guard off the bench, Tyler Hero. He finished with 30 points and 10 rebounds in 41 minutes. He shot 12 for 28 from the field and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. Their elite starting small forward, Jimmy Butler, finished with 19 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals in 40 minutes as he shot 7 for 22 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. And their elite starting center, Bam Adebayo, would finish with 17 points, 16 rebounds, and 3 assists, as well as 5 turnovers in 39 minutes. He shot 6 for 15 from the field, and he shot 5 for 6 from the foul line. For the Indiana Pacers, they were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Chris Duarte, out of Oregon. He finished with 19 points and 5 rebounds in 41 minutes as he shot 6 for 21 from the field and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. With this win, the Indiana Pacers are 1-2, and the Miami Heat are 1-1 to start their season. Jumping up north of the border, the Toronto Raptors hosted the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks would end up beating the Raptors 103-95 for their first win of the season. The Mavericks outscored the Raptors by 8 in the third quarter and by 6 in the fourth. That's 14 points in the second half. Looking first at the Toronto Raptors, their leading scorer was OG Anunoby, their starting small forward out of Indiana. He finished with 23 points in 32 minutes as he shot 9 for 15 from the field and 5 for 9 from 3. Their starting shooting guard, Fred VanVleet, would finish with 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in 39 minutes. He shot 8 for 17 from the field for the night. For the Dallas Mavericks, they were led in scoring by their elite starting point guard, Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic finished with 27 points, 9 rebounds, and 12 assists alongside 5 turnovers in 39 minutes. He shot 11 for 24 from the field, 2 for 10 from 3, and 3 for 5 from the foul line. Alongside him in the starting lineup, their starting small forward, Tim Hardaway Jr. out of Michigan, finished with 25 points in 39 minutes. He shot 9 for 16 from the field, 7 for 11 from 3 on the night. With this win, the Dallas Mavericks are 1-1, and with this loss, the Toronto Raptors are 1-2. Jumping out to Chicago, the Chicago Bulls hosted the Detroit Pistons, and the Chicago Bulls were able to jump out to 3-0 after beating the Pistons 97-82. The Bulls outscored the Pistons by 11 in the first half. They outscored them by 14 in the third. And for the Detroit Pistons looking first at the Detroit Pistons in this matchup, their starting small forward, Saddiq Bey, led the team in scoring. He finished with 20 points and 16 rebounds in 34 minutes. He shot 8 for 16 from the field and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. Looking now at the Chicago Bulls, the starting small forward, DeMar DeRozan, finished with 21 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists in 34 minutes. He shot 7 for 18 from the field, and he shot 7 for 9 from the foul line. With this win, the Chicago Bulls are 3-0. With this loss, the Detroit Pistons are 0-2. Jumping now to Minneapolis, the Minnesota Timberwolves hosted the New Orleans Pelicans. The Timberwolves were able to beat the Pelicans 96-89. The difference for this game would come in the second quarter, where the Timberwolves outscored the Pelicans by 12 points. Looking first at the Pelicans, their leading scorer was their elite starting small forward, Brandon Ingram. Ingram would finish with 30 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists alongside 7 turnovers in 40 minutes. He shot 12 for 23 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and 3 for 5 from the foul line. The Pelicans starting center, Jonas Valanciunas, would finish with 20 points and 17 rebounds in 3 steals in 36 minutes. He shot 6 for 10 from the field, and he shot a perfect 8 for 8 from the foul line. Looking now at the Timberwolves, their leading scorer was their elite starting center, Karl Anthony Towns. Towns finished with 25 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists as he finished with 5 turnovers, and he fouled out in 29 minutes. He shot 10 for 20 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard, D'Angelo Russell, would finish with 12 points and 3 rebounds alongside 7 turnovers in 29 minutes. He shot 5 for 14 from the field. With this win, the Minnesota Timberwolves are 2-0. With this loss, the New Orleans Pelicans are 0-3 to start their season. Jumping next to San Antonio, the Spurs took on the defending NBA champs, Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks would end up beating the Spurs 121-111. The difference would come in the fourth quarter as the Bucks would create separation, outscoring the Spurs by 6 points in the fourth quarter. For the San Antonio Spurs, they were led in scoring by their starting small forward out of Creighton, Doug McDermott. He finished with 25 points in 32 minutes. He shot 9 for 13 from the field and 7 for 11 from 3. Their starting small forward, Keldon Johnson, finished with 20 points in 29 minutes as he shot 9 for 18 from the field and 2 for 3 from the foul line. For the defending champs, Milwaukee Bucks, their starting small forward, Chris Middleton, would lead the team in scoring. He finished with 28 points and 2 steals alongside 6 turnovers in 35 minutes. He would shoot 9 for 17 from the field and 8 for 9 from the foul line. Their elite starting power forward, the reigning NBA Finals MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo, finished with 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists alongside 3 blocks and 5 turnovers in 30 minutes. He shot 7 for 15 from the field as he shot 1 for 2 from the 3-point line, and he shot 6 for 8 from the foul line. With this win, the Milwaukee Bucks are 2-1, and with this loss, the San Antonio Spurs are 1-2 at this point in the season. Jumping out to Portland, the Trailblazers hosted the reigning Western Conference champs, Phoenix Suns. The Trailblazers would end up beating the Suns 134-105 after they would go on to outscore the Suns by 20 in the first half, and then they outscored the Suns by 12 in the second half. No, by 13 in the second half. For the Phoenix Suns in this matchup, looking at them first, their elite starting shooting guard, Devin Booker, led the team in scoring. He finished with 21 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in 28 minutes. He shot 9 for 19 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard, Chris Paul, would finish with 4 points, 2 rebounds, and 11 assists in 26 minutes. He shot 2 for 5 from the field. Looking at the Portland Trailblazers now, they were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, C.J. McCollum. C.J. McCollum would finish with 28 points in 30 minutes, shooting 10 for 19 from the field. He shot 6 for 11 from 3, and he shot a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard, Damien Lillard, would finish with 19 points and 8 assists in 24 minutes. He shot 6 for 11 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, and he shot a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. And with this win, the Portland Trailblazers are 1-1. With this loss, the Phoenix Suns are now 1-2 to start their season. Last but not least, jumping out to Staples Center, the Los Angeles Clippers hosted the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies remain undefeated as they beat the Clippers 120-114. The big difference in this game was the third quarter, where the Grizzlies outscored the Clippers by 11, and they also outscored the Clippers by 6 in the second quarter. Looking first at the Clippers, they were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard, Paul George. He finished with 41 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in 35 minutes. He shot 15 for 25 from the field. He shot 5 for 12 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. For the Memphis Grizzlies, they were led in scoring by their elite starting point guard, Ja Morant. He finished with 28 points, 2 rebounds, and 8 assists alongside 5 turnovers in 35 minutes. He shot 10 for 19 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, and 6 for 8 from the foul line. Their starting shooting guard, DeAnthony Melton, would finish with 22 points and 7 rebounds in 33 minutes. He shot 9 for 16 from the field, and he shot 4 for 8 from 3. Their starting power forward, Jaren Jackson Jr. out of Michigan State, would finish with 21 points and 7 rebounds in 31 minutes. He shot 6 for 11 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Memphis Grizzlies are 2-0, and with this loss, the LA Clippers start their season off 0-2. And of course, after today's NBA matchups are played, I will come back with a recap of what's been going on there. Taking a look at what's been going on overseas, starting off in the Premier League, Chelsea was able to beat Norwich City at home as their English forward Mason Mount would finish with a hat trick. Callum Hudson-Odoi finished with a goal. Reece James finished with a goal in the first half as well. Ben Chilwell and Norwich City even finished with an own goal, not to mention a red card. With this win, Chelsea is actually sitting at the very top of the table. Man City went to Brighton and Hove Albion, and they were able to pull off a 4-1 win as Ilkay Gundogan got their first goal. Phil Foden scored their second and third goals, and Riyad Mahrez would score in the 95th minute to secure the 3 points for them. Looking at La Liga, not many big matchups as El Clasico actually takes place today. Jumping out to Bundesliga, the reigning Bundesliga champs Bayern Munich hosted Hoffenheim and were able to pull off a 4-0 win. First goal coming from their elite German winger Serge Gnabry. The second goal coming from their elite Polish striker Robert Lewandowski. Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, the backup striker, finishing with the third goal, and Kingsley Coman, the French winger, with the goal in the 87th minute. With this win, Bayern Munich sits on top of the table. Borussia Dortmund was able to beat Arminia Bielefeld 3-1 as Emre Can's penalty kick, Mats Hummels, and Jude Bellingham would also score amazing goal. All 3 of the goals for Borussia Dortmund would be really, really nice, and of course it would keep their title hopes alive. Looking at Serie A, AC Milan was able to beat Bologna 4-2 as Zlatan Ibrahimovic would score in the 90th minute to, of course, get the love of the fans back. And the reigning Ligue 1 champs, Lille, were able to draw with Brest 1-1 as Jonathan David's 19th minute goal would be what they needed to at least get the 1 point so they wouldn't be stagnant. Once all of today's matchups are done and completed, I will come back tomorrow on Monday, October 25th for another episode of The Elite. I want to thank everyone once again for listening to all 48 minutes of this piece. I hope all is well. I want to apologize for all the names that I did butcher. But of course, I want to thank the NBA, NFL, college football, soccer, the FIFA, the MLB websites, and of course, I want to thank everyone for listening to all 47 minutes of this piece. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with another episode or a couple more episodes after this. Thanks for listening to this episode. I hope all is well, and I'll catch you with more following this episode. Peace.